Aaron first told me the day he was fired. So that night, I think it was, or maybe she told me the day before. I can't remember actually, but I was in total shock. I couldn't believe that somebody I was, living a floor below, somebody I was close to was going through that and I didn't know. Um, it was shock and it was just deep pain for her and guilt for not knowing, guilt for being the captain of that team and not understanding that that was going on. Um, and it was just sickening and it was pretty surreal and I can't even imagine how she felt because for me to even digest it, was gut wrenching, never mind to have experienced it. So I think for me, it was just shock and surreal. And I couldn't believe that another one of my friends was going through this. I had existed in this league where so many bad things had happened and nothing happened to the coaches. So, like, people knew Paul was sleeping with players and people knew Rory was verbally abusive and nothing was happening to him. So, when I found out that the club found out he did to Aaron and then fired him right away, I was like, very impressed because I was like, okay, something bad happened. It was reported. They did something about it. And like, again, in retrospect, like that is such a sad opinion because of course that's what should have happened. That's the only thing that should happen. But being in this league for so long, seeing these things ignored or pushed under the rug, in my eyes, I was like, oh, okay, like the club found out he was doing something bad and they fired him. And that's the way it should be. And like they're doing the right thing. The thing that I wrestle with now is we were all committed as a group. The upset racing told us that in order to defend, referring to as the player Erin, her best interests, we should not at all say what happened, because he could sue for defamation of his name, and then Erin would have to show up in court. And the player wasn't ready to do that. So from my perspective, especially, Erin had come to me with this information. I was one of the only people initially who knew who the player was. My whole focus was to just what is best for Erin? Like, what is going to serve Erin best? This is a traumatic event. I can't imagine what she's going through. So if she doesn't want her name out there, her name's not going out there. I think we all realize that obviously the more people know, the more someone can do about it. But at the same time, you can't ask somebody who's gone through one of the worst things that could ever happen to you to stand out and put their name out there. What I have a really hard time with now is understanding how much was for Erin and how much was for the sake of the club. And again, I don't know that. I don't know the law. I don't know enough things. Like, all I was worried about at that time was protecting Erin in any way that felt good to her. And if the club said that was what was in her best interest, then that's what we were going to do. The only thing I really knew of him, in terms of quote unquote scandal, was his relationship with Christy Rampone, which to me, I thought was this isolated incident where, she was an older, like, veteran player. I mean, even older than him, and they were in a relationship, and it was this kind of one off. I had heard people not like him and not think he handled that situation well, but I actually hadn't heard until after everything that happened at racing that there were players at Sky Blue and other places saying that he was doing things that were similar and along these lines and totally inappropriate. So I actually, whenever I heard quote unquote bad things about him, I always thought it was in reference to him and Christy, which I was able to, for what it's worth, wrap my head around as, just not a bad incident or this one isolated incident, not a trend he had with players. I personally don't know how they have a system in place that they trust and feel comfortable reporting things in if it remains as it is. What I will say is I don't know, and I genuinely don't know what or anyone at racing knew about Christie's inappropriate past. And again, that goes back to me saying, like, was that information relayed at all? Did you speak to players? And I think that that's something that really gets overlooked in all these hiring processes, is like, speak to the players that they have coached. And don't just speak to the 90-minute players, and don't just speak to the 0-minute players, because you're going to probably get like a I love them, I hate them spectrum. But speak to players of every kind from these teams. What are the experiences? Because I mean, I was at Gotham for probably a week before I knew every gross thing that Christy had done around here. So it really didn't take much conversation with people to understand that he had done things wrong at Gotham, or Sky Blue at the time. So what was done to really look into that? Like, did you turn a blind eye? Like, so I don't know. I don't know the exact information he had. I fact that these people continue to be around and their reputations and their actual faults don't follow them, I think makes it difficult in the hiring process. But I also think that the way James handled complaints and created an environment where people couldn't report, I think, probably something has to be done there, because whatever girls are in place there need to feel like if there's a problem, there's a safe place and a right place to go, and something's going to be done about it.